Hello. My name is Noah Gad. I'm going to be telling you a story about how I was a millimeter away from not being a freshman at Wofford College. So it all started freshman year. Got new arrows for my bow because I'm an avid hunter, or at least used to be. I came home from school one day after I got new arrows, and I decided that it would be a great decision to shoot my bow and new arrows. Now, one rule that my parents had given me was not to shoot my bow while I was the only one home. And that really hit me, I guess, while I was getting prepared to go shoot my bow. I kind of sat down and thought for a while, like, is this really a smart idea? And eventually I kind of gave in and decided that it was going to be a great idea. It was a beautiful day outside. It was like 80, 90 degrees. Not quite fall yet. This was first semester. So I went outside and I set up my target and I walked about 15, 20 yards away. Did pretty much everything you're supposed to do. Made sure that I had a backdrop just in case I missed. Checked all my arrows. And the thing about new arrows is, as you get older, your drawback gets longer. So I had to adjust the drawback on my bow from like 22 inches to like 26, something like that. So as I draw back my bow, I'm not really paying attention to my arrow at all, which is not very safe whatsoever. And I kind of just look at the target and shoot. Without realizing, my arrow had fallen off the notch and just went straight into my hand as I shot. I didn't really realize it until I kind of looked at the target and realized that I missed. I was like, wow, I shouldn't be missing from 15 yards away. So I looked down at my hand and I realized that it's in my hand. So obviously a lot of emotions are going through my head right now, like, holy shit, there's an arrow in my hand. And what am I going to tell my parents, because they're going to be mad because this was one rule that they had. So I decided I was going to take actions into my own hands. So I packed up all my stuff, put everything back where it was to make it look like I hadn't shot an arrow through my hand. And I immediately went upstairs and Google searched how to pull an arrow out of your hand by yourself. That's also not a smart idea. So I'm sitting in my mom's home office. She's out of town at the moment. And I'm watching these videos on how to pull an arrow out of your hand. And they seem pretty easy, like it was all easy stuff. So I decided I was gonna try it, so I pinned my hand down in between my knees and I started to pull the arrow, and I got it about like 3/4 of the way through before it was just like, wow, this really hurts. I should probably call a doctor. So I go downstairs and I sit in our piano room and I call my dad, and I'm real nonchalant about it. I'm just like, hey man, how's your day? It's going good. When do you think you're gonna be home? Oh, you got a meeting? That's cool. And then he decides to ask me why I called him, and I'm just like, oh well, I have a mere flesh wound. I quoted Monty Python about an arrow in my hand. And he's like, okay, well, send me a picture of the arrow through your hand, and we'll see what we need to do from there. So this next part's pretty graphic. I'm going to be showing you pictures of an arrow in my hand. So here's the first one. This was upstairs while I was researching how to pull an arrow out of your hand. This is the first picture. And this is the second picture. Yeah. So if you can't tell, I'm actually legit serious. I did shoot an arrow through my hand because I didn't listen to my parents. Listen to what my parents said about the whole don't shoot while they're the only ones, while I'm the only one at the house. So my dad hurries home. We head to the ER, and I kind of have my hand covered like this with the arrow sticking through it. Like nothing's wrong almost. And not like there's a 30-inch arrow in my hand. So we get to the ER and we walk in. And I walk up to the front desk and I'm like, hey, I shot an arrow through my hand. I need to go back immediately. And the guy looks at me and he looks down at the arrow and he's like, are you just holding that there so you can get back faster? And I'm like, no, this is legit. So I show him and he's like, wow, that is legit. So I gotta wait like 15 minutes and they finally get me in a room. And apparently like one thing at the hospital that's really important is like privacy. Like they don't tell a lot of people about their patients. But apparently this doctor did, because I had like 12 people from the hospital come like check out my hand and just start laughing because they said that they heard a kid shot an arrow through his hand. Like also on the way to the airport, my dad was telling me like, wow, you're really stupid. Nobody shoots arrows through their hand or anywhere else in their body. And I specifically remember this one guy coming in and he looks at me and he's like, are you the kid that shot the arrow through his hand? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I shot an arrow through my hand too. And I like immediately looked at my dad and I was just like, I told you so, it happens. So the doctors come in and they're asking me questions like, how much does it hurt? Is it swelling any? Stuff like that. And they decide that they're gonna give me morphine. So they shoot me up, put an IV in me, and they start the process to take it out. Now the process to take it out was actually a lot longer than what I thought it was gonna be. They tried to originally cut the arrow in half with just regular like scissors, but the arrow was carbon fiber, so they couldn't really get a clean cut. So they had to get like this saw that they use to cut rings off of people, like if their hands are swelling or something like that. And they had to use that to cut the arrow. So they finally cut the arrow after like 10 minutes of drilling. It was insane. And they go to pull it out. And one thing that really concerned me was the fact that, like, instead of pulling it out the way that it was going out, they pulled it out the way that it went in, which definitely added a lot of pain. Like, that really hurt. So they eventually get it out and they sew me up, and I look at my dad and I'm like, well, hey, that's over with. So we eventually go home. I have stitches at this point. Here's the scar if you can't see it. I don't know if the light will pick it up or not. Oh, yep, there it is, right there. Yeah. And then the scar in my hand is right there. So yeah, that's my story. I guess the message that I'm trying to portray from this story is that people are actually trying to look out for you when they give you advice on things that you should do and not do. Whereas I chose to not listen to that advice. I was a millimeter away from hitting my main artery and bleeding out on the spot and dying, and not being a freshman in high school or at Wofford. So I guess just listen to people's advice. Like, as much as you think that you can handle stuff on your own and figure it out on your own, you really can't. There's times in life where you actually do need people's advice and do need people's help. You can't just do it all by yourself. So with that, I guess that's the end. So I guess I'll see you guys.